I'm Halsey Cook. I'm the CEO of Milliken and Company, and we are very, very happy today to welcome Senator Graham to visit our Pendleton plant. Since we are outside and 6 feet apart, I think we're good to take off our masks now. And I would like to thank and congratulate the Pendleton management team, which is a young, energetic team that has done a fantastic job in this crisis, and really thank them for the attention to detail. We had our temperature taken on the way in. We have masks inside. Social distancing is evident everywhere. So congratulations to the Pendleton plant. It is a 70-year-old plant, but it certainly doesn't look like it. And I think continuous improvement and constant investments in this area have made a very productive and competitive plant to manufacture these medical gowns. Milliken is essential in many of the things that we produce, and I'd like to thank Senator Graham for coming and seeing this production in action, and hand the mic over to him for some comments.
Well, one, I want to thank the Milliken Company, Halsey, for having me, and this is a story that needs to be told. This is an incredibly exciting moment here in the middle of a lot of tragedy. Number one, we've lost over 70,000 Americans to the virus. The economy as we know it has been shut down. Our lives have been turned upside down. We will get through this. There are better days ahead. All the preventive measures are beginning to pay off. We'll eventually gain control over the virus through vaccines and therapies. But one of the things that we've got to learn from this episode is how vulnerable America is when it comes to the medical supply chain. So you hear every politician talking about bringing back the medical supply chain. This has been a wake-up call for America. What have we learned during this pandemic? That 90% of all the compounds that go into making antibiotics to keep us healthy here at home are made in China. What we also learn is that the gowns and the mask, the essential protective equipment from the frontline health worker, is no longer made in America. The Chinese are supplying the world with junk. They've been hoarding protective equipment and selling it in a gouging manner. If you had any doubt about the Chinese Communist Party, I hope this episode would remove all doubt. The Italian people gave the Chinese people protective equipment when the virus first hit China. How does the Chinese Communist Party pay back Italy? They're selling back the equipment that was given to them. So my goal is, when this is all over, that we will have recaptured the medical supply chain. It will be made in America. There's a law called the Berry Amendment. The Department of Defense is required by law to purchase from American companies the fabrics and the components to make military uniforms. It would be foolish for any nation to depend on a foreign power to provide military uniforms. That is truly a national security imperative. I will be introducing legislation next week to include protective equipment for frontline health workers, our doctors, our nurses, our EMTs, under the Berry Amendment. In my view, the protective equipment to fight pandemics like this need to be made in America, and we cannot rely upon China or other foreign powers to take care of our basic health care needs. What does this mean for Milliken? What does this mean for South Carolina? A wonderful opportunity. When you talk about bringing back the medical supply chain to the United States, when it comes to gowns and masks and gloves, South Carolina will benefit the most. We have advanced textile manufacturing. We have advanced manufacturing that we can get into the ventilator business. The bottom line is that this legislation I will introduce next week I expect to be bipartisan, and I expect it to be part of any future package when it comes to coronavirus relief. This has been a wake-up call for America, and we're going to answer the call. As I speak, 2.7 million hospital gowns are being manufactured in this plant. It's over a $20 million order. 75 people are working there today because of this order. I talked to the FEMA director yesterday about buying America when it comes to protective equipment for our healthcare workers. He said, count me in. This order was going to Vietnam. I got a call from Milligan. We weighed in, and the right decision was made. The people working in there today are making all of us safer because they're producing the equipment that our frontline health workers need to keep them safe, which in turn keeps us safe. We think we can double this order to over 5 million. In August, this order runs out. My goal is after August, you have a new order. But the ultimate goal is for all of the protective equipment that our nurses and our doctors and our healthcare professionals depend on to keep us safe and to keep them safe will be made in America. And let it be said that South Carolina will lead America when it comes to returning the medical supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Go.
Thank you very much, Senators. Very well put. And on behalf of those 75 Milliken associates, thank you for coming and visiting us today. I'd like to turn it over to Chad McAllister, who is the president of the division for textiles, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about this product and why it's so competitive and how we're going to make so many of them.
Thank you, Halsey, and thank you, Senator Graham. Milliken, for many years, has made products that protect people. We make military fabrics that our military personnel all over the world wear that protect them every day while they're protecting us. You may not know this, but we make airbag fabrics that are in all the cars here that keep your family safe in the unfortunate event of an accident. We make flame-resistant fabric that our firefighters wear. And I'm very proud to say that over the last 4 weeks, we have begun the production of medical fabrics. Here's a gown. Senator Graham mentioned the gown that we are making. These are gowns that over the next 2 months we'll make 3 million of, and that will end up on the backs of nurses, doctors, EMT, healthcare workers on the front lines of fighting this pandemic. I'm incredibly proud of the production workers at the Pendleton plant, the production workers at the 8 sites that are helping in this fight and producing these fabrics, and thankful for all of our partners in scaling this up. Again, we are hopeful that this is just the beginning of bringing these supplies, these critical healthcare supplies, back to the U.S. and back to United States production. So with that, thank you again, Senator Graham, for your visit on behalf of Milliken Textiles, Milliken, and the Pendleton plant. And thank you, everyone.
You want to take questions this way? Does that work? Does that work for y'all? Okay. Okay. Good. All right. Yes, sir.
Senator Graham, how would you feel about South Carolina's current course in terms of reopening?
I think the governor has got a very reasoned approach based on science and data that we're going to have outdoor dining, which is probably a good way to get back into the restaurant business. I think the main thing is that we have capability and capacity in case there's a spike in the illness. The governor's decision, working with the hospital community to stop elective surgeries, has created a lot of capacity. We're going to go back into the elective surgery business, but I think the governor has a good plan to open up South Carolina, maintaining the health needs of South Carolinians up front. By the summer, I think we'll be in much better shape, and we got to do it right. We don't want to spike in the illness.
Projections show that the reopening is going to lead to a spike.
It will. Everybody knows that when you go back until you get a vaccine, there's going to be a spike. All of this is designed to stop the hospitals from being overrun. What you saw in New York didn't come here. We were able to control the cases, and the social distancing and the stay at home has given us the space for the healthcare system to regroup. Now, as the healthcare system regroups, it will have capacity in the fall because it will likely come back. And when we go back to work, you'll have an uptick in cases, but you'll have plenty of capacity. Hopefully, drug therapies will be out in the matter of weeks, not months, to keep you out of the hospital, to take the level of trauma to an individual, let's say from a 10 to a 1 or 2. But today is about turning the phrase "Made in America" into a reality. If it comes back in the fall, I don't want to have to depend on the good graces of the Chinese Communist Party. And I appreciate Boeing flying in masks from China. But we just learned a couple of days ago that about 35% of all the protective equipment coming out of China is defective. So the purpose for us today is to announce a change in policy, that if the virus does come back in the fall, that we'll be well along in the medical supply chain coming back to America, and the gowns we need and the masks we need to deal with a flare-up of the virus won't have to be flown in from China. They'll be trucked out of Pendleton.
Senator Graham, many Americans or many South Carolinians are still waiting on their stimulus checks.
Yeah.
Any word on, thank you, any word on the process? You know, some people may not even have internet to check and see when their stimulus checks will come. Any word on, you know, how that process?
Right. Well, we've had millions out the door, and if you receive a IRS refund through a direct deposit with your bank, that's how you'll get your check. If you're a Social Security recipient, you're disabled, you don't file an income tax return, you'll get a check through the mail. You got to remember, this is unprecedented. It's been frustrating. But I can't remember a time in American history, maybe other than the Great Depression, where the entire economy virtually was shut down in a matter of 48 hours. And you're trying to get out the door $1,200 checks to everybody in the country that makes below $99,000. You're trying to get millions of loans in the hands of small businesses that were virtually put out of business because of the social distancing requirements. We've had hiccups. Be patient. The money has already been appropriated. It will be coming. The Paycheck Protection Program has worked with some problems, but this second round should be better than the first round. But the only answer that's sustainable is for the economy to reopen. We can't print enough money in Washington to absorb the cost of keeping the economy closed forever. So as we reopen the economy, we're going to be mindful of public health. But back to your question, there will be an increase in infections the more people get around each other, but we'll have the capability to deal with it and manage it, and hopefully drug therapies will be available soon to lessen the effect on the individual who may catch the virus.
One of your Republican opponents in the primary has called for delaying the primary. What are your thoughts on that, and how is what's going on affecting how you're able to campaign?
Well, I haven't done a whole lot of campaigning. I've been spent a lot of time on the phone. I've been home for 40-something days. It was good to get back to Washington and try to get back to business from the Senate's point of view. But I've spent countless hours, like Tim Scott and others, on the phone walking people through this. I cannot tell you how many town halls I've done where people worried about getting that check. I missed out on the first round of paycheck protection. Am I eligible now? I'm self-employed, 1099. Can I apply for unemployment? we've had to deal with the entire economy being shut down for public health purposes, and it's been the most incredible experience, quite frankly, of my public life. I've seen the best of South Carolina. I've seen and heard fear unlike any time I can remember since 9/11. So the good news is we're in the first week in May, I guess, and we're much better prepared today than we were last month, and I think by the summer we'll be in pretty good shape. In terms of moving the primary, I'll let the state officials determine that. I don't think that will be necessary. It's June the 9th. In terms of me campaigning for the job, I will. I have to earn it. The only way it works in America is for you to convince people to rehire you. And there'll come a time when we'll compare and contrast what I have to offer versus my opponent. I expect and hope to be the Republican nominee. I expect and hope to be reelected. But right now my thoughts are on getting my state and my nation through this and coming into the fall better prepared than we are today. Thank you all very much. Be safe.